For the city council cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general public comment. City Clerk Karen, can you please call for general public comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment for an item that is not on tonight's agenda, if you are in person, return that speaker card. Calling in, press *9. If you're calling in, yes, press *9, and if virtual, engage that hand feature now. Okay. So this will be the final call for public comment for items not on tonight's agenda. Seeing no hands or cards. Mayor Combs, you may continue.
Okay, thanks, City Clerk Karen. We'll move on to consent calendar. Under the consent calendar, the city council may take actions to approve routine business items in one motion unless a city council member, city staff member, or a member of the public requests that an item be discussed or continued to a later date. City Clerk Karen, can you call for public comment on the consent calendar?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public would like to speak on our consent calendar items, E1, City Council meeting minutes, E2, receive and file the investment portfolio, E3, appropriation of capital fund unassigned balance for the San Francisquito Creek Upstream flood protection project, E4, an agreement for vehicle and equipment purchase, E5, a resolution updating authorized officers. If you were in person, return that speaker card. Calling in, *9, and virtual, engage that hand feature now. Okay, it looks like I have one speaker. So this will be the final call for public comment on our consent calendar items, E1 through E5. All right, and with that, I'd like to invite Margaret Bruce up for comment on E3.
Just a very quick thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Thank you for your consideration of item number E3. We appreciate your support. We understand that you have many competing demands on your general funds. We appreciate your investment in the Reach 2 project, and we look forward to our continued partnership. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. All right, seeing no further hands or cards, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
All right, I'll bring you back to the dais and acknowledge the Vice Mayor. Didn't you want to?
No, that's for the information items.
Oh, the information items. Okay, all right. So bring it back to the dais. I'll still do that part. Is there any questions, comments, or does someone want to make a motion? I know we're going to be doing.
I'd be happy to make the motion.
All right, I'll second.
Thank you. So I have a motion on the floor by Vice Mayor Nash and a second by Mayor Combs to approve the consent calendar. Any further city council questions or discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, Vice Mayor Nash.
Yes.
City Council Member Schmidt.
Yes.
City Council Member Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Combs.
Yes.
And the motion passes with City Council Member Taylor absent.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to regular business. Under regular business, the City Council considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require City Council approval. The regular business item is F1, consider and adopt a resolution to abandon the public right-of-way adjacent to 100 Terminal Avenue while reserving the necessary public utility easement over a portion of the abandoned area. Here to introduce the item is Senior Civil Engineer Ebi Sorabi.
Good evening, Mayor Combs and council members. I'm Ebi Sorabi. I'm a senior civil engineer with Public Works Department. The item before you tonight is a proposed abandonment of a small portion of Terminal Avenue next to 100 Terminal Avenue and Bellhaven Community Center. This piece of right-of-way has already been incorporated into the Bellhaven Community Center site. And tonight's action is simply the final step to formally clean up the parcel boundary. Here is a brief summary of the key steps to date. The first portion of Terminal Avenue was vacated back in 2020. After the city acquired the adjacent PG&E property in 2021, we identified an additional 4,689 square feet area that needed to be abandoned so the entire Bellhaven site could function as one unified parcel. In September 2025, the council declared the intention to move forward with the remaining abandonment. And in October, the Planning Commission confirmed that the action is consistent with the general plan. This aerial photo shows the part of Terminal Avenue that has already been vacated, along with the 4,869 square feet proposed for vacation to create a single Bellhaven Community Center parcel. Staff is recommending adoption of the resolution to formally abandon this remaining portion of the right-of-way. We will also reserve a necessary public utility easement to maintain access to the existing utilities. Staff will return to the City Council at a future date to delineate and establish the public utility easement. Thank you, Mayor and Council members. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Sarabi. City Clerk Karen, let's call for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, any member of the public wishing to provide comment on regular business item F1 related to the abandonment of the public right-of-way adjacent to 100 Terminal Ave. If you are in person, return that speaker card. If you are virtual, gauge that hand feature. Calling in, press *9 now. This is the final call for public comment on regular business item F1. Seeing no hands or cards, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
Yeah, thank you, Clerk Karen. Bringing it back to the dais. Just sort of more a question of curiosity from me. So, I mean, this street hasn't, or this portion of it has not existed for some time, and it actually has been developed before, right? There were the former the former community center was there, and obviously the field is there. Is there a reason why it wasn't formally abandoned earlier, or as part of what was the Onetta Harris Community Center?
Thank you for your question, Mayor. Yes, the first portion of the Terminal Avenue was vacated early on, and there was a couple other parcels that was owned by PG&E, and we were waiting the city to acquire those parcels from PG&E. And now that the city owns those parcels, as part of the vacating of this right-of-way, this vacated right-of-way is going to revert back to the city of Menlo Park. So if the vacation had of this small portion, 4,800 square feet was done at the time, that portion of the right-of-way would have reverted to PG&E, and so I think this is just a small, the portion that is done right now.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Sarabi? Does anyone want to make a motion, or I'll move to approve the abandonment? I will say I am one of the instances of which the city did abandon part of its right-of-ways sticks out in my mind, and is very much different from this case, but at the triangle that's created from Bay Road and I'm forgetting the frontage along the freeway. What's the name of that street? Can someone? I know the city.
Van Buren.
Van Buren, and how the city had proposed an abandonment because it was supposed to be developed by a private developer, and the city approved the abandonment. I was on the planning commission. I voted against it. That was more than, I don't know, 8 years ago, and that property has never been developed. as it was supposed to be under the abandonment. So I'm always skittish of abandonments, but in this case, we're abandoning it to ourselves. So it's quite not the same thing. But yeah, very happy to make the motion, or not happy, but totally aligned with making the motion to approve the abandonment.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Mayor Combs and a second by Vice Mayor Nash to adopt a resolution to abandon the public right-of-way adjacent to 100 Terminal Ave. Any further city council question or discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, Vice Mayor Nash,
Yes.
City Council Member Schmidt,
Yes.
City Council Member Wise,
Yes.
Mayor Combs,
Yes.
and the motion passes with City Council Member Taylor absent. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to the study session. Study sessions are an opportunity for city staff to introduce an item that will require policy direction from the city council in the near future. City staff will provide a presentation. I will then call for public comment. After public comment, the city council will discuss the matter interactively with staff. The city council will not act on action, will not take an action on items addressed in study sessions. The city council may provide direction to city staff for preparation of additional analysis or information necessary when the item returns to the city council for action. The first study session item is provide direction on phased improvements for a public plaza enclosed portion of Santa Cruz Avenue along the 600 block. Here to introduce the item is Assistant City Manager Stephen Stolte.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council members. Tonight, we will be going over the high-level results of community outreach. We will also discuss at a high level different project phases. And we will take a deeper dive into phase 1 improvements, specifically for site furnishings at the public plaza. And then at the end, I will talk about complementary efforts that are going on downtown for aimed at improvements. Our history here is that on July 8th, the City Council held a study session, reviewed an initial design concept for the public plaza, and provided direction to launch outreach. Tonight, our study session is really focusing on the different phases. We will be seeking your feedback and preferences on site furnishings, and then direction on placing a furniture order and installing that in the short term. To start with community outreach, I do want to note that the staff report contains a summary of all the outreach feedback we received, and there is a very detailed attachment for this item as well. So the presentation will really focus on high-level topics here, and we're also happy to answer any questions about the community outreach. Our activities were in September and October. We had 2 tabling events. One was at the Downtown Parking Management Study Open House. Another was at the Menlo Park Farmers Market. And we also had 2 pop-up events at the actual site of the future public plaza to meet current users of the plaza in the afternoons. And then finally, we launched an online feedback form. Overall, more than 260 participants shared their opinions and feedback. And you can find images of the posters we used on the project website at menlopark.gov/600block. I also want to note that we invited the Youth Advisory Committee to use the online feedback form, and we invited them to the pop-up events. We also encouraged feedback from representatives of disability-focused organizations like Housing Choices, Center for Independence of Individuals with Disabilities, and the Golden Gate Regional Center. At a high level, you can see that participants in our online feedback form ranked different design elements relative to their importance. And outdoor seating is really coming up as the #1 here. But other really notable design elements are the traffic barriers, lighting, the planters, and shade canopies, and other accessibility considerations, along with bike parking. I do want to note that There are two other design elements that are not displayed here on this chart, but they are in the staff report, and they are the stage and the painted asphalt or mural. Respondents were a little more neutral on those, but overall, they still ranked pretty highly. One thing that I'd like to say, and I think this is a good part in the presentation, to let you know that we are thinking through the curvature of the street a little more. And one concept is to install a platform that addresses that curvature. That will influence our final design choices in the end, but it allows for greater accessibility and just better movement around the space. But we're thinking that type of platform could make sense. We're still working through that. That could be dual function. It could also be the area for a stage or events as well. Next, I have a very high level summary of feedback from the actual in-person events. And there are some themes here. One is really creating zones for different activities and sensory-friendly uses, and we would be using planters and benches for that. Another is really just to focus on creating gathering spaces and using a mix of seating to better define them. Another theme is allowing use of the space in both day and night. So during the day, ensuring that we provide shade, and at night, lighting. And then finally, just designing just a really engaging modern space that does have art that appeals to all ages. I also want to note that we have received additional feedback regarding multifunctional storage, which would allow foldable chairs to be stored and then taken out during events. And then maybe an area just to store maintenance equipment that would be used for the landscaping on site or other things. So that's something we're taking into account in the final design as well. We've also received feedback about creating different areas that cater to different users or age groups that have different seating needs. There was a note that some of the youth that use the site really like those picnic tables, but some of the adults that use the site might like quieter seating area with smaller seating options. And then there was a note to really focus on bike parking in an early phase of the project, because we're already seeing users of the site bring a lot of bikes and larger bikes these days with e-bikes. So those are things we're taking into account as well. So on this slide, you can see a high-level overview of the phases of the project. What we are embarking on now is phase one. We're saying that the duration of this phase is about 3 months. And this is when we want to install a temporary ADA ramp. We've identified one product that we can use and install pretty quickly before the other accessibility improvements are made over the longer term. Number two, we'd like to install site furnishings, and we'll talk a little bit more about our thoughts on that. And then we're also refining the design concept. You've seen an initial concept. We received your feedback in July, and we're also incorporating a lot of the outreach feedback. So things will be changing with that design overall, and we'll bring that back to you in the future. That refined design will allow us to launch a call for public art, which could be installed in a later phase. The second phase we're really thinking is would take about 3 to 6 months. And this really focuses on larger installations. It's the lighting, it's public art, it's the landscaping, the stage, most of the other design elements. And then phase three, I don't have a timeline here, but it's really the mid-block crosswalk. That's a really distinct project on its own. It's a capital improvement project. And I think sequencing this so that we really focus on the plaza first could make sense. And then we get to the mid-block crosswalk after that. Okay, so site furnishings. This is where we're really going to be asking for your feedback on a variety. There's 11 products here that we'll take you through tonight. And it's a mix of things. It's more fixed furniture. It's heavy stuff that you cannot move, big tables, bigger benches. And then there's also more movable tables and chairs. And these were things that were identified by the community and the city council in our last study session too. So tonight we're going to be reviewing 4 categories of furniture. The first is tables with a fixed seating. The next is large benches. These are benches that can help define the space actually and be placed around the perimeter. So we're actually not necessarily recommending purchasing them right now. But the large tables, yes, we would like, that's an early phase 1 purchase. And then individual small tables and chairs, that would be another phase 1 purchase. And then finally, high seating to better define the edges. And you'll see what that looks like later on. That's something that we would also maybe wait for a final design so we have all the measurements down right. One thing to note is that we can absolutely repurpose any furniture that does not work that we employ in phase 1 to other city facilities like parks. We can also work on providing the location of furniture that's currently in use in outdoor settings in Menlo Park so people can take a look at how it's held up with wear and tear over time. I will say that we do have a typical standard of using pretty durable steel furniture. We have a vendor through Dumore. You're going to see a lot of their products tonight, which is really top of the line in terms of standing up to the elements and to use. And the other thing to note is that we typically use these steel products in black, and you've probably seen them in parks and downtown already. So color might come up tonight, and you'll see that there's color options as well. So with that, I will pass it off to Jeff Bradley with M Group to really highlight all the pros and cons of all the furniture options.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for having me. Mayor and council members, Jeff Bradley with M Group. As Stephen mentioned, Dumar Products is a very well-known site furnishing company that a lot of jurisdictions use, really because they're really, like Stephen mentioned, they're very high quality, they're very robust. I have a very short story to tell. Back in the late 90s, I worked for the City of Campbell Redevelopment Agency, back when that was a thing. One of my projects was to get bike parking racks, benches, and trash cans all matching. And we went with Dumar Products, and they're all there today now, and they look the same today that they did more than 25 years ago. So just want to give you some context there of why. So basically everything I'm going to show you is from Dumar, with a couple exceptions that I'll make note of. So first, we're starting with these fixed larger picnic tables that would sort of take the place of the popular picnic tables that have been out there during COVID and subsequent years. One thing we did get out of the community engagement, however, is that picnic tables, as we all know, I think, especially as we get older, can be hard to kind of extricate yourself in and out of them, especially when you get a longer bench that's designed for 3 or 4 people. It can get a little tricky. So in this imagery here, we're really focused on the one on the left, which we see as more of a 2 people sitting on each side, and then at the ends you have the accessibility from the wheelchair, as you see on the picture on the right. And so this is all steel. The one on the left, all the black color is epoxy steel, but the part you sit on can come in either a regular wood or what they call polywood, which is a recycled wood product that's also used to make decking. That's has a lot of durability benefits. Next slide, please. And so this is Dumar's kind of classic product, sort of a traditional, sort of historic looking bench with, it has some, if you could see details of that, you'd see some little curly cues on the end and some little decorative flourishes. And they're very attractive and go well in a lot of spaces. I think we're leaning towards a little more contemporary look in the 600 block, just given Menlo Park's position in Silicon Valley as a leader in technology and forward-looking. But this is sort of what you'll see in other communities and other places. And even the Public Works Department here said any any benches, the tables that get ordered for this project and for some reason don't work out would be welcome in any of the parks. So it just gives you an idea of how versatile these materials are. And then the next slide is a similar bench from Dumar, but it's a different color, obviously, and it's subtle, but the design is a little more updated and a little cleaner without the more historical flourishes. And then the next one is kind of a fun modern version of a picnic table where everyone gets their own little seat, which we think may be easier to get in and out of. For a lot of these, I think it'd be important to actually see these and sit on them before you spend, $3,000 or more for a large table with a unique design like this. But this is all metal essentially, except for the tabletop itself, which is that poly lumber product that I mentioned. And then the next one is, I think, Dumar's attempt to sort of modernize and come up with some modular products that could work in parklets and plazas and in public spaces. And so this is basically what you're seeing there with the woman sitting in the middle of a large bench. It's actually made up of several 4-foot modular sections that can be reconfigured into different shapes and patterns. And this would be something that would have to wait to order until the final design is done, because this would need a fairly large, nice flat level area, and it'd probably be kind of like a feature and, defining an area somehow, and really be an integral part of the design. But it kind of shows you the range of things that we're looking at. And then the last one is a simple linear bench that's made out of, that picture doesn't do it justice, but it's, that wooden part is sort of sitting on a slab of what looks like concrete, but it's more of a smoother, lighter color facsimile of concrete, but that's the look they're going for. So it's pretty modern. It could be versatile in terms of, like Stephen mentioned, using some of these larger benches to help define the edges or create distinct spaces within the plaza. And this bench can come in almost any length. And so that could be a real architectural feature and a repeating pattern, possibly. And then moving to the next slide, this is what we're calling a stand-up table. This picture has bar stools pulled up to it. I think in our application, we're thinking of maybe around the edges, it might be nice to just have a table that people could just very easily walk up to, not have to commit to sitting down at a table right away. Maybe they want to stand up because they're waiting for someone, and they want to look around and make sure they have good sight lines. And you'll see these in public spaces, and it's just another way to be in the space without sitting at a regular table. And we think that would also help define the space nicely. And then we get back into some chairs. These are Dumar products again, with a combination of an all steel table, which we think is important for durability. And then some chairs that are mostly steel, but the parts that you sit on that come in contact with the human body are made out of the polywood. And those are, we haven't seen those in person, but we're thinking those are pretty heavy duty chairs. You could move them around, but you probably wouldn't want to move all of them around at the same time if you had to rearrange the space quickly. And then the next one might be a little lighter weight. It's also from Dumar. It's more of a neutral color. To me, it kind of has a high-tech look, just the lines of it, and a more modern design than some of the other ones. And then these are kind of the opposite. They're also from Dumar, but really much more colorful, sort of playful design with some interesting angles, and they're stackable. And all steel as well. And then the next ones are not Dumar, but they probably function, fairly well. and I believe they're stackable. But they may not be the look we're going for, but they are, I have to point out, 10% of the cost of the heavy duty Dumar products. And that orange color almost looks identical. And that is the overview of the fixtures and furnitures that we wanted to talk to you about tonight. Looking for your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So in terms of city council feedback, we have it on the slide here. First, we really are looking for preferences on furniture. We want to focus on stationary tables that we could order in phase one, and then the more movable tables and chairs, and just kind of get some reactions here from the city council in terms of what mix we might put together. Overall, we would move this forward as a furniture order, get it installed as soon as possible, and then at the same time, as we're finalizing the design, gather feedback still. So we would intend to move quickly on this part and make that overall mix of furniture we purchase, definitely under the city manager's spending authority and be able to move that along quickly. So I'm happy to go back to the slides if you want to react to any of the tables that we saw first. Maybe we could start there.
Well, if this ends the presentation, then let's go to public comment and then we can, oh wait, no, this is a study session. So forgot.
There's actually one more piece of the presentation too that maybe I could get to now before we go to public comment.
Well, can we get through the whole presentation?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll pause here on the feedback part. The other item I wanted to call out is that there are a variety of other complementary efforts to improve downtown. One is the replacement of all the garbage and recycling receptacles. We are currently working on an inventory of all the current receptacles, and then we'll work with Rethink Waste and Recology to really kind of recommend how we conduct replacements and what quantity we need, where they should be placed. Our effort here is to standardize all the models downtown. So this one will affect ultimately what we choose to outfit in the public plaza. Number two are the water fountains and their removal. So we're again working on confirming the inventory and then planning for the next step will be planning for their removal with the assistance of a contractor and coordinating with Cal Water to cap all the water connections. Number three is sidewalk cleanliness. Currently, sidewalks receive 9 cleanings a year in downtown. We're going to continue to monitor that to ensure it's sufficient over time. Next is newspaper racks. We definitely observed some deteriorated quality of the existing racks, and they're being moved around downtown. So we're going to monitor the permits and just coordinate with the permit holders on maintenance needs and placement. Next is repairing irrigation equipment and installing new landscaping. Obviously, we need to make sure that our new plants are able to be watered. So that will be our first step, is taking a look at the equipment. But we also want to produce a cohesive planting palette for downtown that's water efficient as well and complies with our water efficient landscaping ordinance. So we're going to need the help of a landscaper to really get through that. And then this is a great opportunity to engage others in planting and even downtown businesses and replanting those areas. Next is the removal of wooden kiosks and the former telephone booths. Again, we're confirming inventory of all the wooden structures and then potential next steps for their removal. Some of the structures actually surround the base of streetlights, so they're a little more complicated to remove, and it might involve repairs actually to the base of the streetlight that's been hidden behind the wooden frames. And then finally, bicycle parking. We've discussed before the Complete Streets Commission ongoing project with bicycle parking. And we've heard a lot from the community about a need for more bicycle parking at the site. So that is an ongoing project as well. After we receive public comment and then the city council feedback, really our next steps would be addressing the furniture install and then just refining the design concept. One big thing that we're really, like I talked about earlier, is addressing the road curvature adequately. And then we're also bringing in extra support to help price out the project and all the improvements so that if we need to go to bid to install some of the larger elements, that we'll have accurate pricing. And that concludes the presentation content.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Stolze. Let's open up public comment on this item. And Clerk Karen, is my understanding we have a request to write general public comment. Can that person just be added to this public comment? Okay, so.
Yes,
so
we
we'll-
can
we'll-
start with our general public commenter and then we open it up for this item, if that works.
Okay, that works for me.
Okay. So with that, we are briefly reopening our general public comment, item D, for items not on tonight's agenda. And we'll invite up Mark Papalarde.
I really appreciate you opening up comments for me. I'm sorry I was late from work. I'm Mark Papalardo. I live at the corner of Baywood and Clover in Menlo Park. I've lived there 2.5 years. Approximately 2 weeks ago, my son received a parking ticket. Actually, I received it. It's my car. And it's because we park between 2 and 5 a.m. There's no street signs warning you that it is illegal to park. So I called up the traffic department and they said, hey, it's illegal in the entire city unless you have a permit. So I'm like, can I get a permit? And they go, no, you're zoned R1. Now, I have 60% custody of 3 boys and they have 2 cars, so I have to park at night. And I go, what can I do? They go, you can come in each day, get a daily parking permit. I go, that really doesn't work because I work. Now, I'm a lawyer, I'm a tech lawyer, but I used to be a gang prosecutor. I was a litigator. And I've looked at the laws, and this law is illegal. You're allowed, Menlo Park is allowed to pass parking laws because of section 22507 of the California Vehicle Code. But there's an exception in there, and it says you have to have street signs and street markings. There's no street signs or street markings on my street. And it says you're allowed to pass these laws. It says, with the exception of alleys, the ordinance or resolution shall not apply until signs or markings giving adequate notice thereof have been placed. And there's none. So they put a green leaflet, they said, on the car that they said my son received, but that's not a street sign or a street marking. So then I looked at Menlo's law, and the law says that it doesn't say it applies to every street in the city. And what it says is it only applies upon those certain streets or portions thereof located within the neighborhood zone. Now, what are those certain streets? There's no signs. So how do I know where to park and where I can't? And so then, I looked at the laws again last night, and it says, it's section of the ordinance 11-24-056. It says, a resident or a visitor may be granted permission to park between the hours of 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. in any residential zoning district in front of his or her residence or the residence he or she is visiting by calling the police department by 1 a.m. And it says you can only do it 8 times a month. So I called the police last night, said, hey, I'm going to park a car. I was on, nice person, dispatch, 15 minutes. They went and checked with their supervisor. They go, you're not allowed. It doesn't apply to you. I'm like, why? It's my residence. This law says this. They go, I can't tell you why. It doesn't apply. So what am I left with here? It's like your laws are preventing me with my child custody orders. I have 3 boys, 2 are minors. Where are they supposed to park? I have a girlfriend, she comes over a lot. So, am I supposed to tell my boys, hey, why don't you go walk a few blocks and find a place to park? Where should we park, Dad? It's dark out. I don't know where because there's no signs, but just park. I'm sure my girlfriend will like it when I ask her to go walk a few blocks to park. But this really is, this is seriously impacting, my relationship. And I appreciate there's this law that I can call up the police 8 nights a month.
Just you're over time.
Okay.
So if you could try to.
All I want is the intent really to stop me from seeing my kids? Is it to stop me from having a relationship more than 8 times a month? I just ask that I'm able to buy a parking permit, for my cars, for my kids. wish somebody would talk to me. I sent you guys an email with my contact information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the general public comment. I'll provide a general response. We are in receipt of your email, which I think came a couple of days ago. And so we will respond. I can't speak from my role about the legality of the overnight parking prohibition, which is decades old in Menlo Park. I'll let the city attorney follow up there. Because in your email, you do make the assertion that you believe that the prohibition is illegal. And so, but I can speak from a policy perspective, and that is that this issue has come up a number of times over Menlo Park's history. And it generally has retained a majority of support from residents for a variety of reasons. There's very specific histories, which again predate me in Menlo Park as to why the parking prohibition came about. And so I can say that it is something that last I was canvassing, running for office, it was something that of which there seemed to be still some wide support. Now, again, as it relates to in response to your assertions that it is illegal, I'll let the city attorney respond to that in time. But I will also you will get a response from me, an email response from me, again, asserting my understanding of like the policy history of that rule. So I think, assuming that staff doesn't want to chime in on this, I think, I'm sorry, the vice mayor.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you can purchase 50 permits every 6 months at a cost of $2 per permit through the police department. So you can actually get 50 permits at a time, twice a year.
Yeah, I know. I think it's and I will say that again, you're not the only person in this situation. It has been and yeah, we've had a number of instances where parents have said, oh, my kid went away to college and then they came back, or two of them came back, and now there's 4 of us driving in the house and we only have parking for 2. Again, it is a quirk of Menlo Park. But it is from a policy perspective, again, only speaking from a policy perspective, it is something that has enjoyed wide support. Okay, with that, I think we'll move on to, but we will follow up, sir. I certainly will follow up. We'll move on to the public comment for this agenda item.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment on our first study session G1 related to direction on the Santa Cruz Avenue 600 block phased improvements. If you are in person, complete a speaker card and bring that to me. If you are virtual, engage that hand feature. Calling in, press *9 now. Okay, currently have 3 speakers. So this will be the final call for public comment on our first study session G1 related to the 600 block of Santa Cruz Avenue phased improvements. Okay, we have then the 3 speakers. First speaker will be Marnie Foodie, followed by Ben Irith, and then Laura Milan.
Good evening, council and city staff. My name is Marnie Foodie, and I am the chair of the newly formed Downtown Menlo Fund. We are a nonprofit with a mission to revitalize our downtown. We formed, we believe we have an amazing community, but we believe that the heart of our downtown does not reflect that. And we believe that there is tremendous opportunity to work together to build something really great. Terrific. To achieve success, what we really believe is that we need a, I think you skipped one. There, thank you. We need a public-private partnership And the first component of that would be this Downtown Menlo Fund, which is a nonprofit to represent the community interest. The second is a Downtown Business Association. This is something that is lacking in our downtown, and we are taking steps to build this out right now. And the third is, of course, the partnership and collaboration with the city. Our mission has three key pillars. Beauty, let's make it beautiful. Village charm, let's work with the local businesses to help them thrive. Let's build community engagement. We have momentum at this time, which we're really excited about. We installed holiday flags over the weekend. We appreciate all of the city's support in getting that organized. We have, as I mentioned, are in the process of creating a new business association. We're also collaborating with new businesses to fill out some vacancies. We also had an article in the Almanac this weekend. I hope you all got a chance to see it. We are sponsored by the Silicon Valley Community Fund, and we had the opportunity to be recognized just this morning by the San Mateo Chamber of Commerce. And it was great to partner with all of the other foundations in our area that are doing terrific work. We feel very honored to be recognized. With that, I want to turn it over to talk specifically about the Downtown 600 block to my colleagues. Here's Ben.
Good evening, Council. It's great to be back. Name is Ben Iriff. I'm one of the 4 co-founders of the Downtown Menlo Fund. I was also a planning commissioner back in the day when we created the specific plan. So we were really excited not only to be able to get going on some of the initiatives we want to work with the city on. Had a chance to meet Colette earlier this evening. She's here. Yes. We're super excited to work with you. I think we can be a big, big force multiplier for the city strategy and also the community and the businesses. We were also excited to get a couple of requests from the council and from staff to talk a little bit about our impressions of the 600 block. So thank you for that. We had very short amount of time to kind of go through the latest information on that. And I just want to make a couple comments. The first one is that it's really important to put this in the context of the bigger strategy and vision for Menlo Park. We actually do have a specific plan. It's a great one. It's been updated several times since it was initially created back in, I think, the 2012 timeframe, most recently in 2023, 2024. In that plan, there's 12 goals for the city and the downtown area, of which I think 3 are really, really relevant for the 600 block. The first one is to provide the plaza and public spaces. Clearly, we're working on a plaza concept here, so it's totally relevant. Second one is to protect and enhance pedestrian amenities. And the third one is to provide greater east-west and town-wide connectivity. So I thought it'd be great to sort of take an initial look at the current design and think a little bit about whether it aligns with these 3 key priorities. And so maybe you could snap to the next slide. So this is just a quick picture that we got from the website and from the plans. First of all, it's awesome that we're doing this. Clearly, we invested a ton in making the El Camino move El Camino towards the specific plan. We've invested a ton in the train station area, and now we have the opportunity to start working on the downtown. So it's really, really important to get this right. A couple of observations and concerns. First of all, traffic and congestion. The current setup for the 600 block is it's westbound only. You can only drive a car the west direction. You cannot go east. This is a concern. I think most of the businesses in downtown have expressed concern. We have concern as residents. It's not clear to me that this is the only way to do it. Laura's going to provide some thoughts here in a second. If we could meet the needs of creating a plaza and supporting the businesses and having the kind of the parklet space and have traffic in both directions, wouldn't we want that? The second one is the choice of materials. I was a little bit unsure of how to think about the presentation that was just given, in the sense that I would expect to have an architect design this space for us. I know we have a great urban planner helping us out, but I would start with the architect and get the bones right, and not just sort of start out by putting paint on the asphalt, buying movable and stackable furniture. We know it's really exciting. The city has recognized the need to work on the fountains and the waste disposal and these wooden structures from the 1970s. We do not want to dig the hole deeper by putting movable furniture, things that are going to get vandalized, moved, changed. We should build the bones first. The bones should, I think, have the elevation of the ground level with the sidewalk, not the street. And we should look at really, really high quality design for this and high quality furniture and so forth. So I'm going to hand the baton over to Laura, who's actually taking a look at some other concept ideas that could be helpful to the city as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. I'm Laura Milan. I will go quickly through my things. So I thought that starting with looking at what's working downtown is a great place. The Streetery program has shown us many great things. We can create outdoor space where people gather and where cars and bikes can still pass. So we dove into that. And next slide, please. We took that important learning and we wondered, what else do we need to know before we try to think about this problem? So we looked at the goal. The general plan stated the goal for Santa Cruz is to create a high-intensity, pedestrian-oriented retail street. That's a great goal, and that involves shoppers and business owners. So we talked to the business owners. We looked at a survey from February of this year where 70%, 62 out of 88 business owners want Santa Cruz Avenue reopened to vehicular traffic. So we took all of those goals together. It's a puzzle, it's a challenge for sure. Next slide. And we asked, could we meet all of the goals? Could we create an amazing plaza, a great space for kids to hang out, for people to gather? Could we address the connectivity between east and west sides of the city? Could we address the traffic issues? And we think that we can. So what's shown on this slide, I'll walk through it quickly, is a best of both worlds scenario where we take the bike lane. We re-added the bike lane because when we removed it, we realized it was unsafe for kids on bikes. So we put a bike lane back. We have a bike lane that's 6 feet wide right now. Therefore, the plaza, anything there, needs to be armored for vehicles. So we already are not a pedestrian street. So then we wondered if we widened that by 4 feet, making it 10 feet wide, and made a shared street between bikes and cars, which is a design pattern used throughout cities. A shared commercial street is the idea here. We could reinvigorate the flow of traffic while maintaining everything that's great about the streeteries and the plaza. And as we dive into choosing picnic tables and getting this plaza going, we wanted to make sure that that we think about, are we heading in the direction that everyone wants us to be going? So I hope that when we talk about where we're going with the plaza tonight, we can think about the overall design and see if there might be other ways to hear everyone's needs and potentially meet all the needs. So thank you so much for everyone's work on this. We are excited for downtown and for working with you guys.
Thank you for your comments. And I'm seeing no hands or other cards for G1, so Mayor Combs, you may continue.
All right, thank you, City Clerk here. Thank you to everyone who provided public comment. We'll bring it back to the dais for council discussion and direction. It's a study session, so there's no actual action items that will be taken. And so I'm sorry, Mr. Stolte.
I'm just hoping we can pull the slides back up. I'm just coordinating with the city clerk.
Yeah. Okay. Me or you?
Whatever your preference is. We're happy to go back through the slides that display the furniture too,
Okay.
to get your preferences there.
Okay, just a couple of kind of framing questions on my part, because I think I also had the question of what we're doing here, as far as ordering furniture and the whole idea of having a really organized, holistic approach where we engage professionals, like, right, to rethink what we want to do with this future plaza. So is part of the idea, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, that the picnic tables that are currently out there are nearing the end of their useful life, and that there is desire to replace them in a way that allows the plaza to still be in use while we have discussions about and sort of then engage like experts about a larger discussion about the design of the plaza, or am I'm missing something?
You are correct. The current picnic tables definitely need to be replaced. So that's an immediate need. Number two, we did bring on M Group for their experience, especially in this world of public plazas and activating public space. We're augmenting our team with a landscape architect that can help better define the final design. We have a design concept right now. It was produced by M Group, but we want to get all the measurements right and really just the placement of every improvement and the pricing. So that landscape architect will help with that. However, the furniture we install now, some or maybe most of it could be used in the final design. This is typically the type of furniture, the durability that we would use in an outdoor space. So we do think we'll be able to use some or maybe all. If not, then we'll repurpose it. In the meantime, we'll get feedback from the public who's already using the space of whether they like the furniture or not as well. And that can help to, tweak the final design too, or we, pursue other types of furniture, or maybe we standardize it all in the end. So that's kind of our approach right now. We're still augmenting our team with additional expert help from a landscape architect too.
Okay. I appreciate that answer.
So at this point, as you probably know, there's just three picnic tables in that space, and those are quite rickety and desperately need to be replaced. And there are people who are coming downtown, and then all the students as well, who really are looking for a place to sit, be able to socialize and use this space. So yes, thank you for moving this forward with getting some furniture there, and hopefully that will it will give us more of an idea of what we're doing.
Thanks. Yeah, and I'm actually happy to provide the feedback as well. Maybe not in this order. I kind of just put it all together if that's okay. But I also interestingly drove by downtown and kind of walked that just to see the state of the area. So I'm glad that we're moving quickly. I guess my feedback, I'll just do a really quick list just to cover all three of the areas you're looking for. One, I appreciate the amount of outreach that's been done. It was more than I actually expected, so I was pleasantly surprised to read through all that. And particularly for the accessibility community for their perspectives, because that's really important, I think. I also like the Plaza First sequencing. I think that sounds good, and I think that's kind of what we're saying. The crosswalks and other major improvements, I think we sequence those a little bit later. I love the flexible and adaptable approach as well. I think that's smart. And what Mr. Stolte was saying about the ability to repurpose, I think is going to be really important. A couple of observations around, I feel like that personally, this would be wise if we made this something accessible and usable for folks of all ages. I know that a lot of the teenagers coming from Hillview use it, and they're probably the bulk of the folks. There was a lot of feedback about children and families, but I feel personally that a more balanced approach would be useful, so it has maximum community use. I also want to be a little careful, and I think this came up in our last conversation. I don't really see this as a park downtown. I would want to be careful we didn't go too far toward, hopscotch and playstations, and I like the public art aspect. I think that is appealing to draw people in, but I don't think having a park on pavement is a great use of the space. Just my personal opinion. Definitely the Wi-Fi. I think people would appreciate a place to be able to go out and work in the sun and relax and get things done. And bike parking as well, I think, is also a really big positive. The last two things, and I'll move into the furniture and the space. I think it's really important that as we think about this in the short term, that there's a cohesive visual identity for downtown. I know we don't have that, and people sometimes call it a brand or whatever we're looking at, but I would be careful that we don't turn it into anything sort of fluorescent colors and bright yellows and greens, and because I don't think that's what downtown will eventually look like. I mean, I'm predicting here, but so I would probably lean toward more of the blacks, like the black color that can be repurposed, the things that if we do move them around, they fit in other parts of the city. And I know that's not an exciting color palette, but because we don't know what the color palette for all of downtown is going to be, something in that black tone is going to be able to be used in so many other places. So that's one bit of feedback. I also lean toward the classic benches, as Mr. Schulte said, about even though they're a little more expensive and maybe not as exciting, the classic benches, table number 3 that we can repurpose. Not a big fan of high tables, so I wouldn't put because that would be weird to repurpose in other parts of the city. The chairs, I think, should be also pretty durable and have no arms. And then the large benches, the number 3, the black, that could be moved to other parts of the city if needed. I realize as I provide that feedback, it is probably the most boring of the aspects as far as the furniture itself goes, but given that we want to keep this as flexible as possible, that's kind of where I ended up with everything. So hopefully that was some good feedback kind of all the way through. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you let us know which one is table 3?
So the classic bench one, I can, once it pops up, keep going back. One more. That one. I think that's why did I call it number 3? I think it was number 3 and maybe the deck, but the idea was, if for some reason it's probably the easiest to kind of get in and out of, and if we end up needing to stick it in a park or something. So like I said, I know it's not the most exciting, but just forward thinking there.
Thank you. So I'll just kind of go and provide my own more substantive comments. And one, I want to reiterate that I do think that there is a lost opportunity here and not reopening the portion of the street that can be reopened to vehicular traffic and maintaining a portion of the street as a public plaza. It to me seems like one of the few scenarios that I've seen in my time on city council where there is a compromise that works for all stakeholders. You get a public plaza and you get vehicular traffic reopened as lots of residents and very specifically lots of businesses downtown have asked for. And so again, I continue to be supportive of that, and I think the absence of that will, like, sort of for years always sort of call into question the extent of the support of the plaza, because I think if you remove that as a discussion item, then I think support for the plaza goes to 100% or as close to 100% as you can get for something in this community. Diving in, I do want to say, I'm not a fan of the idea of providing some sort of storage at that plaza. Like, we've got the actual parking plazas, we've got other stuff where if there is some sort of shed that you want to build or create to store chairs or stuff, I say we look to those spaces, but not to having something here within this space where there's this big shed where things have to be stored. And I don't know if that's a now discussion or a later discussion, but I'll just give it to you now because it came up. I have to say I do like, and so I'm going to be different from Councilmember Schmidt, and that I do like the more contemporary look, the more sort of modern, you might call it. And even, again, I think you can overdo the colors a bit, but I do like if we're going to like the picnic tables, I would say, picnic table number 2, the yellow one, like, right, with the wood. Yeah, definitely not that one. Yeah. And I am a fan of the longer picnic tables. Let's be clear, like there have been a number of attempts of these sorts of plazas in downtown, and at least one I can remember over the course of my time, which was a complete failure. The users, for lack of a better word, who have made this a success have been the kids, specifically the kids from Hillview, and then some of the schools on Valparaiso. And so let's not forget them in this this sort of repurposing, in this change, in this evolution. Let's make it something that's exciting and interesting to them still. And again, they like to be like at the longer picnic tables. Again, there are always more of them sitting at that picnic table than should be. But I do think that we again should focus on those aspects of this redesign that allows for a bunch of people to gather together, and not just like the smaller tables. So again, I would just say that, like, yeah, I definitely am a fan of the color, the more modern design, that picnic table. I do also like what bench 530, again, like a more aesthetic and contemporary look, a little bit more of a permanent look. And I will say that, like, I appreciate that, like, we're going to do something now so that, again, to recognize that the picnic tables are deteriorating. But I also don't want us to be in a situation where we rush into doing something now, but then try to make it in a way that's going to be useful for now and later. And then we end up with something that doesn't work for now or doesn't work for later, or you're dealing with it later and you don't like it. I don't care, like, if we like buy stuff and, and we say like, oh, you know what, we don't like it for, that's fine. That's not wasted money. We'll repurpose it. We'll find something else for to do, or we'll donate it. But I would prefer us to make decisions that we think are best for right now in this moment. And if they work for later on, they work for later on. If they don't work for later on, they don't work for later on. I know it's not my money, so it's easy for me to say, but I think that's because I don't want us to buy something based on its flexibility, and it's not something that we love as a community. And so that's the only, or that's sort of one of the general directions that, like, I would give. Overall, again, really excited about this effort. I will say with things, and this goes back to the idea of like the sort of the overall aesthetic, or looking at it holistically. So when we talk about things like removing the wooden kiosk, and the telephone poles, which I am like all aligned with. So like, is that something that, like, the M group is going to be a part of? Is that something else? Like, right? Because again, like, I do think that, like, this all should be connected in a way. And if the through line is staff, then you can tell me you're the through line. But I'm just sort of looking for who's overseeing that larger project.
Those larger projects heavily fall on Public Works. And so and Public Works is also heavily involved in the Public Plaza project. So the through line would be staff.
And by through line, like a design. And so is Miss Mitch, like, sort of like going to be taking on the, like, so if I don't like the design, do I go to her? There's a chance I might not like. I'm just because again, it does need to be connected, because I mean, you can't, and maybe you can, and I've missed it, but I do think like you can't just remove those kiosks in some cases, you've got to replace them with something, right? Or, or maybe you can just remove them. Tell me if I'm missing something here.
I don't have all the answers on the kiosks right
which
now
is
because
fair.
we're just inventorying right now and seeing what's possible after that. But yeah, there are a lot of current design features downtown that even include concrete that we're taking a look at. So we would like to take a more comprehensive approach to those types of projects because they affect the full Santa Cruz Ave.
And then that brings up one question. And also, sorry, Councilmember Wise, we'll go to you to see if you have any comment. And so when you talk about like also removing the concrete water fountains, again, very much aligned with that. Like, is the idea that they get replaced somewhere, even if not like in that specific section, but that you have those more modern like water fountains with like the water bottle option also?
The water fountains are a significant maintenance concern. So our focus right now is just removal.
Removing it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Just a very quick follow-on question, because I want to just make sure I understood. To the mayor's point, I thought I was really thinking about the visual design of the entirety of, let's call it Santa Cruz, just to keep it simple. And I picked up echoes of maybe we were going to do more fuller design in parallel through the staff, or I looked at the list of complementary things as sort of only kind of cleanup and removal and refreshing, but are we saying that there's potentially going to be a visual design for the entirety of Santa Cruz, or are we just talking about the 600 block?
For those complementary efforts, it's not just the 600 block. It is the entirety of up and down Santa Cruz Ave. Some of those projects, however, will affect the types of things that go into the public plaza. It's mostly the garbage and recycling receptacles because we're looking for standardization there. It's the bicycle parking because that fits into a larger project overall. And there was one more. I need to look at the list here.
Maybe, sorry, just to cut in to make sure I'm being clear, like if we picked what's on the screen here, bench 530 for the plaza area, that gives it a sort of a yellow, orangish wooden feel. I think what I'm asking is more the visual design continuity up and down versus I understood the components of the complementary effort, but if we're going to design in wood all up and down Santa Cruz, then that's a very different decision than designing in like Swiss modern in, aluminum and metallics, right? So it doesn't sound, that's what I'm trying to suss out is, are we talking about taking something in the plaza and carrying it all the way through Santa Cruz at the moment, or is that quite a ways in the future?
Right now, we really are just talking about the public plaza, but there is other furniture in downtown right now. And I misspoke earlier when I said it was black in color. It's actually a darker gray. The other steel furniture we have downtown. So that might be an opportunity to match and provide a more cohesive look to the site furniture at the public plaza. Additionally, the landscaping we would use at the public plaza, we would like that to match with a cohesive palette for all of downtown when we replant medians and other planting spaces along the sidewalk. So there's another opportunity to provide some cohesiveness there too. But we are looking at this project kind of distinct right now and not looking overall to create a plan for downtown right now. That could be a future project.
Okay, thank you.
I would only add though that like the extent to which you have a very specific aesthetic and approach to the plaza, like that will likely inform future decisions. Like, right, you can't, if you go Victorian in the public plaza, then you can't, or whatever that looks like, right? Then all of a sudden you can't do like sort of construct mission kiosk up and down, Santa Cruz. So it does, I would assume, like inform like future decisions that may not be like design at their core, but will have a design element, like, right, and you will have options, and I assume will be trying to reference the plaza in some way.
And that's why I was being a little more conservative, because I assumed exactly what you just said, is I totally agree that it would be weird to have a fluorescent playground down at one end of Santa Cruz, and then everything else is sort of, forest green and wooden, and it would feel odd, right? So that, anyway, I don't want to belabor the point, but that's probably why I made some of the more conservative choices, because if we get all kind of, modern and, Victorian or whatever down at one end, I would assume that's going to be what downtown would eventually start to look like, so.
Uh, Councilmember Wise or Vice Mayor Nash, is there anything you?
Yeah, I'm
Councilmember.
happy to. Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for this presentation and all this information tonight. I like the idea of something similar or the same as bench 530, just a bench with a back, maybe along the perimeter of the space, and then picnic tables, the same ones that Mayor Combs mentioned, the table 537, maybe in the middle. Just because I generally think people on a bench like to have a back to lean against, especially if it's on the perimeter for people who are just sort of like enjoying the space. But then I know that I've spent a lot of time downtown, especially when the youth are down there, and I know that they love those picnic tables, as Mayor Combs mentioned. So I definitely want to keep that for them. So yeah, in terms of furniture, that would be my feedback.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is there anything?
Thank you. I'm really excited to see how this public plaza shapes up. And very excited that it's moving forward. Thank you. I guess my first question is on movable chairs and how that works. I think it's wonderful to have the flexibility, but I certainly wouldn't want staff to have to be going out there reorganizing or locking chairs up or anything. How do you see, or because these are so heavy, maybe they don't have those same concerns? I'd love to hear comments.
Yeah, some of the chairs we presented, especially at the very end, they're very lightweight. So some of the others that are steel are a little heavier, and they're harder to like walk off with or even like move a long distance. So and then they're also more durable, and they're in that do more family of products. So they might relate to the other furniture a little better too. So we were thinking of having slightly heavier but still movable chairs, and there's ways to affix, I forget the term for it, something to the bottom of each leg that allows it to be slid across the surface a little easier and more movable. So that's what we were kind of thinking for the movable items, and not locking them up and stacking them and having staff out there every day doing that. If we were to really pursue an event space where there could be music, or businesses could kind of occupy that space and go through a permitting process with the city. We had discussed that a while back in July about event planning, having foldable chairs that they would just have to be deployed to the site.
Thank you. I know that there has been a minor issue downtown with furniture disappearing at night. So I am concerned about how many chairs we deploy and the cost of them. But I do like the idea of having some movable furniture. But generally, I agree that the picnic tables seem to work really well. I wonder, I've had some feedback that the tables in the library, which have shades over them and fixed seats, and also a place where they're accessible, so the wheelchair could pull up or stroller or whatever. I'm wondering if those were considered at all, and if so, why, if that is a possibility. I guess I am not overwhelmed by any of these choices for the tables, and my concerns are, first of all, just that if you have a solid surface, it's harder to keep clean, it seems, and rain puddles, and it seems like the maintenance is not quite as easy as some of the mesh, the vinyl, it's probably not vinyl, but the coated mesh tables that you see around that I know the city has some of. So I'm wondering if those were considered, and if not, is that a possibility or not, I guess?
We could certainly look into those more. I'm not familiar what brand they are, unless any staff here know. Yeah, we'd have to look into those a little more, but that could certainly be an option.
Thank you. Just again, I do worry about the puddling and or things spilling and staying on the surface, and just how it's maintained with the solid surface. I would like to see a assortment of, which I think has been what's been described, of seating arrangements, just so that there's some long tables that the families, students, people can use, but also some smaller tables where there can be like 4 seats or all. I believe that Dana Hendrickson sent some comments in with a suggestion to CCIN, which looked interesting. So I would love to get that just looked at. And I guess I'm wondering, how do we, are we choosing something how does that play in, since that hasn't been one of the choices? How will we proceed tonight?
In terms of not one of the choices, are you referencing the smaller tables, or?
The smaller tables and some of the, well, there was a smaller table here,
Yeah.
but just, I guess if there are other options that can be looked into, is that something, how do we give you feedback on that and not stall the project?
If there's familiarity with the tables with a fixed individual seating at the Menlo Park Library among the council members, we could take feedback on that product tonight.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them. I don't like them. They look institutional, like it's what they have at a jail or something like that. And I appreciate that, like, durability is really important, but creating something that's nice and warm and inviting is also equally more important to me. And so that if that means we cycle through these more often, then that's fine. But I don't like those institutional looking like mesh picnic tables. That's just my opinion. So
I have just sent, it's a Google Maps version of the visual of the tables at the library, if to City Clerk Karen, if it's possible to pull those up. If it's not possible, that's fine. So I guess another concern is just especially with Black, about how if it gets too hot and or too cold. So I think some of these other the benches that have that are not all metal appeal to me more for that reason. Let's see. Agree with a lot of what has been said as far as just additional garbage and trash receptacles, and the regular maintenance is, please, yes. And I like the planters and benches defining the safety and for safety and defining areas. Yes, on the shade sails. I think has been said by my colleagues, I am not interested in a child play area or a dog park. And while the street games work really well, like on Castro and Mountain View, that's where they've got an entire street, both sides of the street and for blocks set us closed. And so I don't think we have enough room here. There was some discussion about light art, and there was a comment about it might be, and which I agreed with, that it may be triggering for some individuals. And let's see what hasn't been said. I guess I want to make sure if with neutral, whatever we get can be cleaned nicely, so that if neutral color on some of these, especially some of the ones that are not, that are faux wood, may have trouble keeping them clean. And just so we choose something that is, again, easily maintained. I'd love to get more information on the platform, if this is, and how that would work, if that's between the curb and the street. It sounds very intriguing.
We're happy to build out that idea more and bring it back to council, but it does look kind of like a, at least an image we've seen is, I'm not sure if it's wood, but it looks like wood and metal combo. It almost looks like a deck that just extends out to the crown of the street.
Great, thank you. There is a section behind the parklets, between the parklets and the bike lane, and it currently, basically, Bistro Vita currently has some seating there, and I know that Ali has suggested, or has offered to have that seating made public, and that could be an area for quiet seating for like 1 or 2 people to sit at a table. And he said he has the tables out there already, and would be happy to have that be a public space for people to bring their coffee or whatever. And we might want to talk to Left Bank and see, if that's something that's of interest. It seems like a good use of the space, that we might want to talk to Left Bank as well, to see whether they're interested in that. If they are, that's great. If they aren't, that's also a possible place for bike parking. There's quite a bit of space there.
Just making sure I'm understanding, are you talking about something that's like part of the right of way or part of their parklet? Like,
It's part of the public plaza. It becomes part of the, it is part of the public plaza, and would be public space
but why
and
would,
not part of the parklet.
but why would we look to them to furnish or put anything in what is the public plaza?
Only because they have offered, because they do not have storage, apparently. And I would leave this to staff to actually work out any details. But apparently there are chairs and tables for like 2 people there that they are willing to have the city use as part of the public plaza.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be in the middle of it. I want the city to, but it has been mentioned as space that could be a quiet area. That sounded intriguing to me.
Well, I want to be in the middle of it. Like, there's no quiet area on Santa Cruz. It's like, so this isn't a quiet.
Well, it would be quiet compared to the, sitting next to
You're
a table full of middle schoolers.
Yeah, so you're between a road and a restaurant, so it's not quiet. But my whole thing is that, like, if part of what we're trying to achieve is some sort of cohesive aesthetic throughout all that is the public space, then I don't see why we would sort of look to Left Bank or Bistro Vita to furnish or provide anything that's clearly part of the plaza. Because then, like, is what they get, it's gonna like not match what we get.
I guess I would see it as just, it could be trial to see whether it's an area that's used, whether it's something that, rather than having the city furnish something there, if there's something that's there, see what, does the public like it? And then we can decide what we want to do further. But it seemed like I thought
Yeah.
it was an interesting offer
Yeah, I
just
don't-
to use it. No, I see
Yeah.
what you're talking about
Yeah.
with the cohesiveness and totally
Yeah.
agree with
Yeah.
that. And I don't know how it all fits together, but it just seems like, to me, it was a space that we've been wondering how to use it. It seems that a quieter, taking your comments, just a space for one or two people who could sit there and work, have coffee, whatever, as opposed to taking a whole bench or a whole seating area for individuals, that might be something that's, I am interested in it. I don't know if others are. And we could, try it out and then decide whether, as everything else, whether we like it and whether the aesthetic is what we want. Let me just see if there's anything else. So I think basically we've covered, I've covered my comments. Thank you.
Thanks. I had two more. One I forgot to mention and one kind of emerged through the discussion. I always think I always get nervous when we're asked to make like this level of detailed decisions because I always feel like we can be a little all over the place. I think I'm happy to walk back some of the concepts I had about reuse and practicality. But the biggest thing for me, I think, is as we think about these individual decisions is something warm, inviting, and modern that people want to be a part of, with the big caveat of, and I appreciate the practical, but when I saw the green things, this will play into my feedback on that as well, is what we do here in the plaza, I would want to make sure it would just look good if we extended it all the way down Santa Cruz. And so like, I don't love the library stuff only because like envisioning that all up and down Santa Cruz just feels pretty industrial. And actually even some of the same choices that I made around the black benches, all the way up and down Santa Cruz, I don't love that. I was thinking it would be more deployed somewhere else. So I was being very practical as well. But if we could get a sense of what some of these things would look like if the entirety of Santa Cruz was in that color scheme and in like either wood versus steel versus black versus green, I'd feel a lot more comfortable than just ping ponging a lot of different design ideas. So that's maybe one thing is I don't want the plaza to stand out as a sore thumb when the rest of Santa Cruz might look really different. So that's just one piece of feedback I wanted to offer, is being able to visualize the entirety of the street, and whatever is chosen would be a helpful data point. And then the only other thing that I forgot to mention is I really appreciate the complementary efforts in downtown. I think, folks like Marnie, Ben, and Lauren have been advocating for that kind of stuff as others have. It'd be great on the website to see a month-by-month calendar as well. I know that you guys have agreed to create a website, but I think being able to say, oh, well, we're going to do this in February, we're going to do this in March, even if it's estimates, I think that just gives folks more confidence that these things are going to happen in relatively short order. So it's just a small request based on what I know you're already thinking about. Thanks.
I don't know if I said this, but I agree with what the mayor said as far as a more modern, more interesting palette.
And I would only say with that, like if we go it for some of these sort of temporary efforts and we like see it and we don't like it, we can see it. There's also a portion of Santa Cruz, I'm forgetting exactly where it is, but there's like sort of some towel work, like is that near where the Cafe Vivant is? Is that city? It's like a sort of a wall thing, and it's almost like Spanish towel-esque. am I getting it right? Is that city infrastructure?
I believe it is on city infrastructure. I don't have the history of how it was installed though. But yeah, there are like Spanish style decorative
Yeah,
tiles.
well, I think that should be up for debate about whether we want to keep that or not. I just want to put that out there. Okay, but what I would say as far as like direction, like, yes, I am supportive of, we need to replace the picnic tables that are out there, and I very much am supportive of going forward with some replacement efforts. And I know Councilmember Schmidt said he is like not comfortable at all with the details. I know city staff is not a surprise. I'm very comfortable with details, and I have thoughts on lots of details. But more than anything, you certainly have my support that we should replace the picnic tables. Is there anything else?
I think what I'm hearing is we have the green light to go ahead, replace picnic tables with new seating. It sounds like it's the steel and maybe wood combo, the more modern piece that we might test out in this phase one. There was interest in that bench with the back, bench 530. Which is more of a statement piece in our overall design. We'll think through how we could deploy that. I'm not sure if we can really deal with the crown of the street right now with that, but that's something we could think about long-term for phase two. And then for the movable seating, for this phase one implementation, it sounds like, we have the go-ahead to try out some of the stuff we presented tonight, maybe more of the heavier products, that were do more products with the small round tables. And so we can put a package, a mix together to test in the meantime.
And I would only say with the movable chairs, if they do start disappearing, then let's take learnings from that and not necessarily just replace them, but rethink the strategy there if they start disappearing.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Wise.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, I agree with the Vice Mayor's concern about like cleanliness for the surfaces when there aren't holes, but I also agree that the mesh can be quite unsightly. For the picnic tables on table 537, the one on the right does seem to have like slots and like a wooden top, so it's not fully solid. I know that the yellow doesn't sound like people are interested in that. I'm just curious if that maybe comes in a different color. And then I just wanted to also add for the movable seating, I do think the heavier options are better just because I do think I agree that having mobile seating could be very useful, but I do think it can look quite messy. I don't think people tend to put it back and stack it nicely. So I think things that are a bit heavier might be just better in this case. Thank you.
So one other thing that is good about the chairs is just some people really like or need backs on the chairs, backs on their seats. So that would be a benefit of the chairs. Just if we are choosing from what is before us, I would tend to go with the 537 table. And yes, the yellow one, the one on the right with the wood top or faux wood top. And also I prefer the chairs with the 485/30, the round, those chairs that seem like they might match, not just color-wise, but also sort of aesthetic. Do you have any idea how many tables and chairs or how much we can put in the plaza, or is that for future discussion?
So for the final mix, I don't know just yet, but for this initial mix, and maybe Mr. Bradley can help with this one, where we'll get together and put together like, our test mix, and it won't fill the entire plaza just yet. But we'll create those spaces that people can test the different types of furniture.
Yeah, just for the council's information, in my conversations with Ali, the restaurateur there, he said originally he had put out 9 picnic tables. I looked on Google Earth, couple of years old image, there was 7, and now today there's 3. So that, in my mind, that's kind of the range of tables we'd be looking to replace at this time. I think the smaller tables would be more of a variable of how the final design shakes out.
I would just note that when there were 9 tables out there, there was also a structure in front of Walgreens, much of Walgreens, so that we now have more space available.
Right.
Okay, yeah, and I would just echo or plus one the final comments of the Vice Mayor and Councilmember Wise as far as their direction. All right, do you have all you need?
No, thank you all for your feedback. I think we can move forward with putting together a package for phase 1.
Just one last comment from me, I think, is just based on some of our experience with the senior center, it seems like if we could get some residents to try out some of the furniture, make sure that it's comfortable, make sure that it really works for people of different abilities, different ages, things like that, that would be really, it seems like it would be a good idea.
Great. And we'll also add to the project website where other outdoor furniture currently is in the city, other models, so people can test things out all over town.
That's perfect.
All right, thank you for all of the work on this. With that, we'll move on to our next study session item. Right, study sessions are an opportunity for city staff to introduce an item that will require policy direction from the city council in the near future. City staff will provide a presentation. I will then call for public comment. After public comment, the city council will discuss the matter interactively with staff. The city council will not take an action on items addressed in study sessions. The city council may provide direction to the city staff for preparation of additional analysis or information necessary when the item returns to the city council for action. The final study session item is provide additional direction on home upgrade services program element enhancements to ensure expenditure of the first half of the community-wide electrification project grant funds. Here to introduce the item is Sustainability Manager Rachel Wander.
Thank you, Mayor Combs, and good evening, members of the council, members of the community. I'm here tonight to get further direction on the city's community-wide electrification program. This item has come to council before, but I'll provide a brief background and share opportunities to serve more community members while meeting critical grant deadlines. Through the California Energy Commission, the state appropriated $4.5 million to the city, with the first half of those grant funds needing to be spent by March 2026. The city will be able to invoice for the second half of the grant funds and then spend down by December 2027. The city partnered with Peninsula Clean Energy, also known as PCE, our official electricity provider, to use the first half of the funds to replace gas appliances in Bellhaven homes through their home upgrade services program. PCE has been providing this no-cost home electrification to eligible homeowners across their service territory. This includes installing heat pump water heaters, heat pump heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, induction stoves, and electric dryers. With state grant funds, the city has been able to serve more homes in Bellhaven with expanded eligibility beyond PCE's requirements. In March, City Council provided direction to enhance this program by offering Bellhaven residents solar and battery systems, electrification upgrades for renters where the landlord and the renter meet income eligibility, and offering rental electrification bundles for portable equipment for those living in multifamily buildings. Grant funds are also now being used to electrify the Bellhaven Child Development Center. The city, PCE, and our community-based organization partners have been out spreading the word in both English and Spanish about this program. We've participated in close to 30 community events and meetings And with climate resilient communities in Menlo Spark, we've canvassed Bellhaven homes. We've worked to layer complementary home rehabilitation programs and have established relationships with Habitat for Humanity, Rebuilding Together, and Grid Alternatives. We've also posted information in the community using the electronic message board on Chilco, hanging banners, sharing flyers at the Bellhaven Community Campus and at the Bellhaven Child Development Center, and placing yard signs where electrification upgrades have already been completed. There's a photo of us out canvassing where we found one of our yard signs. And so through this outreach, we've been really encouraged by the broad community interest in electrification. We've had a lot of great conversations and have been able to get a lot of folks to sign up. You'll see that we've had 86 scheduled home assessments to date, of which 58 have been completed. 38 of these homes have signed participation agreements, and 17 upgrades have been completed. While each of these 17 homes is a success story, the participation is not sufficient to spend the full grant amount. At our current pace, we'll have a remaining $680,000 from the first half of the funds by March. We'll need to get closer to spending that first half to invoice for the remaining $2.25 million. And on this slide and in the staff report, you can see the projected amount we'll spend across each of our program elements. And so the EQC and staff have been considering this urgency, and we reviewed options together during an EQC meeting in September to identify ways to increase participation. And now we're seeking City Council direction to implement 7 program enhancements that can help us meet this March deadline. The first option is to expand the program citywide at the 120% AMI, or area median income. While PCE serves all of Menlo Park, there is a gap for residents across the city who are at moderate income. Applying the Bellhaven eligibility citywide means that we can serve 6 households outside of Bellhaven that have applied to the program that are in that 80 to 120% AMI range. We don't anticipate having more than 15 households participate under this. Next, we could match PCE's rebate for heat pump space heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, heat pump water heaters, and electrical panels citywide. City Council previously gave direction to offer these rebates in Bellhaven, but we could not limit geography due to complexities with PCE's rebate administration. PCE, however, can administer a matching rebate with a contract amendment that the city manager could execute. We could also expand into transportation electrification by offering rebates for e-bikes and electric vehicles. The city could identify partners to distribute rebates of $1,000 for e-bikes and $2,000 for EVs. We'd be able to shape our own eligibility for these incentives. We could look at residents in high pollution neighborhoods, residents who are 65 or older, or residents who participate in income eligible programs. Next, the EQC was excited about offering solar and battery storage at the same time as electrification upgrades, rather than evaluating if homes would be good candidates after completing electrification upgrades. This option could attract new applicants, as solar and battery have the potential to cut utility bills while providing backup power. Another option is to bolster the rental electrification bundle program with the Bellhaven Community Development Fund. Outreach to resident and multifamily properties will begin soon, and we know that the 20 that we are working to put together right now will go quickly, as we already have an interest list. We can also improve engagement on our existing offerings. 34% of our applicants likely came from a CBO referral, and we've had a great partnership with climate resilient communities through an agreement that they hold with PCE. With recently updated marketing materials, we could formalize outreach support with organizations who can help us to distribute our new materials and drive more program participation. The last option is to develop a referral program that encourages past program participants to share their positive experiences with their neighbors. We can offer up to $250 per referral in 2025 and up to $1,000 per referral in 2026, with a limit of 2 referrals per calendar year. We owe many of our current program participants to referrals, and offering an incentive can further strengthen this grassroots engagement. And so bringing us back to why we're here today, staff recommends that City Council provide direction on the Home Upgrade Services Program enhancements to ensure expenditure of the first half of the community-wide electrification project grant funds by March 31st, 2026. And as we get into discussion, I'd like to offer some policy questions that will help us take our next steps. And so I'd be looking for direction on how should the city plan to spend remaining funds before the March 2026 deadline? Should we advance all of the recommendations? If demand exceeds the estimates for each of the recommendations, should we return to City Council to reevaluate those amounts, or do we have flexibility to move amounts between those different program options? Can rebates or referral bonuses be increased or decreased based on participation? And then open to any other feedback or creative ideas as we look at the next 4 months of spending down our grant. And I also wanted to share that I'm joined in the chamber this evening by Alejandro Posada, a program manager at Peninsula Clean Energy, who's been our partner on this effort, as well as Juanita Croft from the Bellhaven Community Development Fund, who is online, and they're here to answer any questions related to our partnerships.
Thank you, Ms. Launder. Let's call for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment on our second study session item G2 related to direction on the Home Upgrade Services Program, if you are in person and have not already, please submit a speaker card. If you're virtual, engage that hand feature. Calling in, press *9 now. Okay, currently have 2 speakers. So this will be the final call for public comment on study session item G2 related to the Home Upgrade Services Program. Okay, our first speaker will be Charles Chapa, followed by Larry Moody.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Coombs. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm just going to share some thoughts. I have been interacting with a lot of the organizations on this program, and I just wanted to say that I think the Bellhaven Community Center is a great model for energy, for the energy economy, because the full value cycle of this model is solar, battery, and electric vehicles. Really, that's the full value cycle. It's also a resilience model in terms of disaster preparedness. So if they shouldn't be I don't think people understand if you communicate it disconnectedly. It has to be presented as a whole, and we have a great example from the Bellhaven Community Center, which is the Red Cross Center in case of a disaster anyway. It has solar, it has battery, and it's got charging. And that model, we have to find a way to present it to homeowners. And I think the current challenge in the evolution of the solar industry is we've come to a point where there's a string of a thread of trust that's been lost, because early adopters don't go by what others do. But the rest of the bigger community need a point of reference within the community to trust that they're getting into something that's going to be sustained. So, and you get around that by having local installers and local maintenance folks. And I think if there's a partnership between JobTrain and, say, SunPower, which is a nonprofit installer of power, we may be able to get over that hurdle. And if the PCE was developed as a community choice aggregate, that model was developed so that community choice organizations can represent the community in meeting a monopoly. And I don't know if that's how the community feels, that PCE's role is that, but I think they can do a bit more, because in the times that we've interacted, I lived here when there was a 72-hour power outage. And when the community came together to get explanation, they weren't there. So anyway, there's a gap of trust that needs to be bridged for increased adoption of solar. and that's solar, battery, and EV. You can't talk to it separately. And if we can present it as what's possible, if it's financial, what's good enough, and what's ideal. The ideal is all three components. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Larry Moody.
Good evening, Mayor Combs, council members Nash and Schmidt. Thank you for your service to the Menlo Park community. Larry Moody, Government Affairs Community Liaison for Job Train. And what triggered my being here tonight was when the staff as well as the council began making recommendations about including community-based organizations in this grant process, this grant application. We wanted you to know that first, we support the recommendations that come from both entities. Being a community-based organization for 43 years in the Menlo Park community, we really feel that the partnership makes a lot of sense for us, especially in light of our hopes to expand our present facility at 1200 O'Brien, which also is the home for our community, our Child Development Center. And then also we just recently purchased 1010 O'Brien, which was formerly owned by Facebook Meta, right? So we now have an additional amenity in that area, that corridor, that will allow us to accommodate the expansion and the growth in our program design. We got more applicants coming into our corridors each and every day. So we're really excited that you're going to take this this model and are considering expanding it and opening the doors for more partnerships who can take advantage of being a part of the resiliency hub for Menlo Park. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I am seeing no further hands or cards. Mayor Combs, you may continue.
Great, thank you, Clerk Sharon. I'll just in case, so I'm making sure I won't forget, Councilmember Wise, is there anything you wanted to contribute? I'll come back to you, but I'm just making sure to come to you first. So
Not at this time. Thank you, though.
okay, cool. All right, so to diving in, again, this is a study session, so no action item, just general direction, and so I'll provide my general direction. First is for B, offer citywide matching rebate program. Is that still income eligible? Like, right? Is it still based on income, or is just there's no income eligibility?
There would be no income eligibility. That would be to fill the gap. So folks who want to participate in the no-cost program who aren't eligible, we could then offer them this program.
Okay. And then just this whole idea of expanding the program citywide, why didn't we start off citywide?
Well, there's a lot of history on this one, but the intent of the grant funds was to serve the under-resourced community in Bellhaven. That's what the request was made to the CEC. And kind of looking at the agreement that we have with the Energy Commission, we aren't limited to a disadvantaged community or an air pollution burdened community. So we have the ability to make that policy decision if we want to expand citywide. However, it was the policy direction from council to focus on Bellhaven.
And that has an income eligibility standard right there. And so, right. Well, I'll say, like, generally, I'm supportive of all of the options except for G. I don't like the idea of a finder's fee that we're paying someone to give us direction to or names of residents who would be interested in this. But all of the other ones I'm totally supportive of. But what I will say is that, like, for me, we spent a lot of time talking about this. It's come back a lot. And that means that it wasn't appropriately calibrated from the very beginning. And so what I would say is that going forward, we should default citywide for these programs, especially when there's already income restrictions in place. So there is restrictions to make sure we are actually getting these services and benefits to those who need it. And I am going forward not going to be focused on the idea of where in the city those folks are located, but just that if they qualify, then they qualify. And especially in that sort of approach, we don't get this scenario, or we're less likely to get this scenario where this keeps coming back because it's just not calibrated correctly. We've not understood the market. And so we've continually expanding it. So I would say going forward, let's just start off. And if we end up where we run out of money, then that's not a bad thing at all. And so in that end, to some of the policy direction, I would give staff maximum flexibility to move things around as needed from one program to another. If one program runs out of money, then move money there. And if at the end of the day, you serve so sort of a first come, first serve. And if at the end of the day, this all gets expended, then that's a success. And it gets expended without this having to come back before you for additional changes in this program. So that's my direction. I'll pass to one of my colleagues who would like to.
Yeah, I can go. So just like I've a small list of things. One is I just wanted to express some appreciation. I think because I came up through EQC, I saw this from soup to nuts, and I appreciate the city staff's willingness to go to the regular community meetings that are held every month. I remember those occurred right adjacent to EQC, and I know Ms. Lunder's at those quite frequently. She's out in the community a lot, so I think that was, I really appreciate the fact that staff is out there talking to residents all the time on this one in particular. I will, with the mayor's perspective, I will say that that could be true, although if I remember correctly, I would take some slight exception with that if the requirement to win it is to serve a particular community, because I do remember, in the previous administration and in the previous way, a lot of federal money and state money was allocated. It really is which communities you serve. And because of the affluence of Menlo Park as a whole, it might have reduced our ability if we had gone citywide in the beginning to win the money in the first place. So I think I just would say, I would rather win the money and come to council 6 times to figure out how to spend it versus not win the money and not have the problem. So I think that was what I remember as being some of the reasons why the money was allocated the way it was.
But my only pushback is that obviously the money wasn't allocated. That restriction doesn't exist. If that restriction really existed and had some value, then we wouldn't be having this discussion about expansion. I hear you when it really exists, like that a specific, I don't know, community has to, but even then I think that we should be really reticent and cautious about those types of offers, the extent to which it creates lots of churn and lots of back and forth between council or for council and staff as it relates to what is the real sort of demand out there.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sorry I
No, it's fair enough. And I mean, it's more of a philosophical debate. I think I would always rather win the money. And it probably wasn't a restriction. It was more a criteria for winning the money in the first place. So I would always rather win the money and then figure out the back end challenges versus, disqualifying ourselves up front. So just as a point of kind of future philosophy. I had 2 quick questions just so I had it straight in my head. So with the tables and the pieces, that are in the proposal, I actually agree with the mayor. I like all of them except for, I'm not a big fan of G, as well. So A through F. I kind of assumed in reading this that those are not just to spend down the first half of the funds, but we would keep them in place after March as we win the other big chunk of money. So the program then becomes this in its entirety. Is that correct?
If we want to avoid the kind of back and forth, yeah, we could certainly, if they're successful, bring that forward with the second half of the funds.
Yeah, that's what I think to the mayor's point is, I think we might have the same problems if we shrunk it back down after March, we would run into the same issues. And then just a second question, what if we fall $50,000 short by the March deadline? So it's more of a question of, do we have a sense of, I think there's flexibility built in if I'm remembering correctly. So if we don't quite get everything done by whatever it is in March, that's good enough. And we might have a little extra time to kind of get over that final hurdle. I'm just worried if we're, $10,000 short, then we lose $2 million. That doesn't seem great, but could you maybe clarify and remind me of how that works?
Yeah, that's fair. And we've tried to tease out an exact dollar amount from the Energy Commission of how much we can have left on the table before we invoice the second amount. And we've gotten to the number of 100,000.
Oh, good.
So when
Okay.
we have about 100,000 left, we can invoice them for the second half.
And if we go a little past March as well, it doesn't disclose. So let's say it's April and we're at $90,000 left, we're still okay?
We
There's
just
more-
need to submit the invoice in March so they can pay us before their fiscal year ends.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So it's more of that. And then the last comment I'll make, I do like all these as a way to continue to allocate the money in the community. The one thing I would ask us on item C with the e-bikes is for staff to take a look at what has been going on in Menlo Park City School District with some of the restrictions on certain classes of e-bikes for kids being parked on, I won't go into the whole rationale, but I think Superintendent Gracia and team has done a good job of some safety issues for certain classes of e-bikes. And I would just ask us to model off of that so we're not incentivizing parents to buy hazardous e-bikes for kids. And if you want a little more info, just let me know and I can point you to the right set of resources. But I'm an e-bike rider myself. I'm happy for that to be a general thing, but I would like to support the school district and what they're trying to do with some of the kids. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks. First of all, I want to say that I actually really appreciate all the reports and how you've been providing all this information to us. And it's been really remarkable at how the uptake is increasing now. We're getting the traction and it really looks like things are moving. So thank you for all the efforts that you've made. I guess I look at all of the different options and am excited about all of them, but I'm concerned about how much time it's going to take to get some of these up and running. A and D, expand the program citywide, and D, add solar and battery. Apparently are just already there for within the PCE contract, so those are no-brainers to me. I guess, and G, I also shared some of the concerns that I heard from my colleagues, but it's something that we've heard from climate resilient communities and also staff that will really move the needle. And so I actually would be in favor of doing that one as well, because I think they know the clientele best and the community best, and we need to be for many different reasons, getting people electrified. So I'd like to have a little bit more discussion on that one. The one that stands out to me, well, so that basically that leaves B, which is the matching rebate program, which is a contract amendment. Is that a huge lift in any way for this, for staff to do a contract amendment?
We've already drafted the amendment because we were intending to execute it for just Bellhaven until we, discovered that wouldn't be possible within PC's program parameters. So that's already been developed.
Sounds great. So I would definitely be in favor of B. C to me is the one that sort of stands out, and I wonder how much of a lift that is and whether that money is better allocated in other areas, just because it seems like it's somewhat different than basically how much of a lift is it to get C up and running? And what does it detract from something else?
Sure. That one, we would probably look to do an informal procurement process similar to what we did for the zero emission landscaping equipment vouchers. And we'd probably follow that model for our program. And so I think it would be a shorter sort of contracting process, assuming that there's an organization that's interested. And we have, the agreement templates and the application templates, and even the marketing materials that could be pretty easy to create. However, your point as far as, distracting or maybe not necessarily adding to the building electrification, which was the core of this work, is definitely understood. And we haven't necessarily heard wide community interest for these programs. We were just looking to fill gaps, recognizing that there have been regional and federal programs that have sunsetted that have provided incentives for these offerings.
Definitely. So, actually, let me go on. So E and F, is that a tremendous lift to get those, the rental electrification bundles? And the additional CBO marketing partners, again, both of those look like they needed additional staff work.
Is there an issue with okay. Let me know if it's distracting the microphone and we can pause. Those would both require an informal procurement process as well, which I think would take about a month or two. So we would have maybe a month or two of implementation before March. And so they're less likely to have uptake before this kind of deadline that we're looking at. But we've heard that these are important for the community.
So I guess where I am is I actually would hold off on C until a little bit further, just unless it's something where it's really easy to bundle 3 procurements rather than 2. But I would tend to hold off on C. It just seems a little bit more out, not directly electrification, but I would be supportive of all the others. And then as far as policy direction, I agree with what's been said, where just I'm comfortable with staff running with it as much, and moving things around, whatever is needed to get there. Thank you. Oh, and I guess one more comment based on the public comment that was made. I just wanted to make a comment that the power outage that happened is part of the distribution system, which is Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, and not Pacific Clean Energy. I'm sorry, Peninsula Clean Energy, PCE, which actually procures the electricity itself. So that the power outages are part of the PG&E. And certainly solar and battery does help in that situation. Thank you.
Councilmember Wise.
Thank you. So agree with a lot of what's been said. I am excited about option A, expanding the program citywide. I agree with Councilmember Schmidt. I don't want to, I just hear so much about our youth and e-bikes. I don't, want to encourage what some in the community feel is a major problem. So perhaps focusing on electric vehicles in that one, or if it's possible, having some parameters about like where the e-bikes are going, although I don't know if that's possible. And then I'm actually in favor of option G, the referral bonus program. I do think if we're going to expand citywide, the referral program should also be citywide. But the reason why I'm in favor of it is just because I feel like if you see your neighbor having work done and you are talking to them about it, I feel like that's just a much more like organic and natural way that this would happen and might encourage people to do it. And so it seems like a good idea to me. But then I do also want to echo that I'm very happy to give staff the flexibility to move things around as they see fit. Thank you.
I forgot when requested that. So I would like to see Bellhaven residents prioritized when we go citywide. Any Bellhaven projects would get priority.
But I don't understand how that, like, right now it's a Bellhaven only program and we're not getting the demand that we need. And so we're going to go citywide and then prioritize Bellhaven residents. I'm just like not. At some point, it feels like almost, because again, we're talking about of which programs of which there are income restrictions already. And it should just sort of at some point, I don't understand what's being achieved exactly. But again, if we could spend all this money with Bellhaven, it would be spent, and we didn't achieve that. And so it seems like we're adding just another complication for staff when it comes to administration of this. Again, that's how I'm seeing it. We've had, as long as this program has been, essentially Bellhaven residents have been prioritized because they've been the only ones that can make use of it.
Understood.
Yeah.
However, I believe that the whole intent of this, the whole intent of this grant was to help a community that is burdened with the air pollution more so than others in the city, and also has with the income qualification. I think there has been a great there has been a trust issue. There has been some time that it's taken to just get this off the ground. And I would, I feel strongly. And I'm also partnered with, or Brown acted with Councilmember Councilmember Taylor. And I think that this is something where if there is a list of people getting this, I think there's going to be plenty of money to go around, but it may be something where someone has to wait a little bit longer, and I would prefer to see Bellhaven residents have the priority. I think that that's the intent. They are the neighborhood that is most burdened with the air pollution, can really benefit from the electrification.
So for a resident sort of living on like Oakland or Ringwood right next to the sound wall on the flood triangle side, I think that they would be hard pressed to say that like somehow that their burden as far as air quality is not pretty enormous. Especially if you're talking about someone who is like on the other side of Bellhaven. Like, right, so it's just, I mean, and the air quality in the flood triangle area is not great and as worse as it is in some parts of Bellhaven. So it's just not even true that Bellhaven has exclusively the worst air quality in the city.
All due respect, I think, so having worked on some of this and obviously I will let the experts speak as well. So we started working on some of the urban forest management plan work and dug into the data. And looked at air quality as one of the factors, looked at public health, looked at some of the other impacts. So, and then there were air monitoring stations. Basically, the air quality district had those set up. So I do think that although certain areas of Menlo Park might have close levels to Bellhaven, I would disagree that the data does show Bellhaven is much more impacted when it comes to lack of canopy cover. And as a result, pollutants are more widespread. It's nothing inherent about that community. It's just that's what the data showed as we started to work on the urban forest management plan. I don't have it in front of me. I didn't think I would need it tonight, but I'm also strongly in favor of, from an environmental justice point of view, from the original intent of the money in the first place, from the public health impacts, the historical underinvestment. There's just a laundry list of reasons why I would also say, as we prioritize who gets this money, I would always want to see District 1 come first, just because of the intent of doing it in the first place. But also the data does back that up. And obviously we could probably pull that up at some point to show that. But the secondary thing is I think we want to be able to use the money. And so I think the citywide discussion is a result of many other factors that were mentioned earlier, around trust and historical investment and things like that. In an ideal world, we would have been able to use all this money in Bellhaven. But we're not. So to not lose a big chunk of it, I think that's the main reason why we're going citywide, is so we don't lose that second tranche of money. It's not to change the intent of the program, but we're just reacting in a pretty practical way, I think.
I don't I mean, we can move on. I don't feel practical. I feel we're acting in a sort of a pandering in a paternalistic way, to be honest with you. It is, I just do. At the end of the day, this project has been targeted on a specific community and it has been unsuccessful. So you say that community, it's a lack of trust. Maybe it's that community has just made a decision that this is not something that they want. That's possible. And give them that respect.
I actually was just echoing comments that were made. I wasn't actually trying to speak on behalf of that community. I'm saying that the original intent of this project was to put money in a community that's been historically underinvested and has those impacts. The trust issues and everything outdate me. It's not my community. I'm not speaking for them. I was echoing some of the comments that were made in the audience earlier and some of the comments I've heard residents make from attending those meetings in person. So I'm not trying to be paternalistic or anything even close to that. I'm just trying to go back and say, this thing was set up essentially to serve an underserved community, as many grants have been for years and years. I think we should do that as a priority. We should keep that as a priority. The citywide adjustment is just a reaction so we don't lose money that's going to benefit our community. So I kind of reject the premise that this is pandering in some way to that community. That's why the program was set up. And the impacts are real and the data is there. And if you don't believe me,
The program has been unsuccessful.
But I don't agree with that. I mean, if we've got,
Then we wouldn't have to go citywide if it were
But
successful.
we've also made other changes to the program, such as the income limits have been changed. Some of the other, there's been new CBOs who are reaching out. There's so many different factors here.
Yeah.
And I feel if there's residents in Bellhaven who are interested in electrification, they should definitely be, they should get it. I don't think there's probably going to be an issue where this is probably just a moot discussion. But I think that the intent was when Senator Becker gave this grant, worked to get this grant for Menlo Park through Menlo Spark, the intent was for Bellhaven. I would like to maintain that. And
If we had maintained that intent, the program would fail. to expend all of the funds that had been
Okay.
like.
How about, I don't think this is a fruitful discussion.
Yeah.
I think that at least two of us, we can see where Councilmember Wise sits. I do not want to discuss that. Anyway,
Well,
I
you
think
don't
this
have
is
to
not
discuss it, but
a,
I can say what I feel. in this moment
absolutely.
That comes with all of my life experiences and how I feel at this moment as I sit here. A particular community is being talked about and characterized and framed. So you cannot want to have that discussion, and that's totally fine. But as I sit here and when I hear those things coming across, I have to say something because it makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Thank you. And I can tell you, I have had many conversations with Councilmember Taylor, who represents Bellhaven and who actually, I
Councilmember
believe.
Taylor doesn't represent how I feel and my
I
lived experience.
totally understand that.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. And you absolutely, yes.
so
Um,
and
But I felt like we were arguing trying to get a final decision, and I don't think that that's a tremendously fruitful. We all, we each have our own strong feelings, and not to diminish yours in any way, or Councilmember Schmidt, mine, any of ours. We all have strong feelings about this. I just feel like it is time to move on.
yeah, and I would say we all have our feelings. The facts is that the money has not been expended fully with a focus on Bellhaven. We all have our feelings. Those are the facts. Because if it had, then we wouldn't even have a discussion about our feelings. But the fact that it has not been successful is the fact that we're dealing with. Councilmember Weiss, do you want to chime in?
Sure, yeah, I'm afraid I don't have too much to add. I'm sort of seeing both sides here, and in that the money has not been fully deployed, but it appears from the history there was an original intent there. I guess where I think I'm hearing some alignment is that it sounds like folks did trust staff to adequately or we want to give staff the flexibility to adequately use the funds. So at this point, I do trust staff in their recommendations. So if that's expanding the program citywide, but I think staff knows the history and understands the community here. So I think from my perspective, I would trust them to like prioritize or work with individuals who need it effectively. So sorry, I don't not too much to add, but I think I would just trust staff at this point to do the best work.
Okay.
Yeah, I will echo that, and I probably didn't say that in my comments as well around giving staff flexibility. I agree with the Vice Mayor about putting, we all have our feelings about this. I just want to go on the record and state very clearly, I don't think the program's a failure. That reflects on staff, who I have great admiration for and great respect for, and particularly Ms. Launder. So the one thing I want to push back on and be clear, at least for this isn't about feelings, this is about perception of staff, is I think they do tremendous work on this and many other things. I don't want to characterize this as a failure in any way. We haven't expended the money. So what? That doesn't, in my perspective, make it a failure. So I just don't want that to reflect back on staff that this is some kind of a failure on your part. So anyway, enough said for me.
We have failed to expend all the funds. And that's why we're discussing a sort of a change the parameters of the program. Again, back to the facts before us. I don't take it as a particular reflection on anyone, but those are the facts. And I'm not also here to sit here and sugarcoat anything for anyone. We're adults. We're all adults. Does staff feel that they have the direction that they need?
I do. I feel like we have the flexibility amongst all of the options. I did hear a split on the rebates or vouchers for the e-bikes and a split on the referrals, but it seemed to be wrapped up in the end as kind of we can continue to explore those, and if they make sense within the context of this program, we should move forward. If it seems too complex, that we could maybe focus our efforts on the other areas. Does that seem right? Okay,
I think that
great.
that seems good too.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to informational items. Informational items are transmitted to City Council in staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the City Council. Informational items are not action items. However, a City Council member, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. City Clerk Karen, can you call for public comment on the informational items?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment on our informational items, H1, City Council agenda topics, H2, an update to the city's urban water management plan, or H3, an update to the community funding program, please engage that hand feature. Calling in, press *9. If you are in person and haven't already, complete a speaker card and return that to me here at the clerk's desk. Okay, currently have one speaker. So this is the final call for public comment on our informational items H1 through H3. All right, and we will invite Charles Chapa back up for a comment on H2.
I just wanted to express that I would like to see a bit more of, I understand water budgeting is a city responsibility, but I would like to be able to see community members also taking responsibility and extending some action, whether it's rainwater harvest or units where they're proactive on their part. So suggestions of technologies and things like that to homeowners and community members that they can do as well. I mean, the city has a huge responsibility to make sure they get water, but they have to be also, I don't know if it's all outsourced to charities to talk to them about rain harvesting, but I would like to see a portion there where the public is invited to show initiative on what they can do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further hands or cards, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
All right, thank you, Clerk Karen, and I know the Vice Mayor wanted to make a comment on H3.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
I also want to make a comment that BOSCA has online webinars for about rain barrels and harvesting rain and other water saving opportunities. And our city staff has, I believe, an excellent webpage on this as well. So the comments that I wanted to make were about the community funding program. And I'm really pleased to see that, and thank you very much for capturing our comments about considering bottom-up to focus on smaller, funding bottom-up to focus on smaller organizations, and that the funding amounts will be no more than 20% of an applicant's total budget. The one clarification that I wanted to discuss with my colleagues is right now the City Council policy says that applicants must use at least 85% of city funds for direct services. And I would actually like to see that say 85% of total funds for direct services, not just city funds. My concern is that it is, one can say that, well, I'm using all the city funds for direct services and that I'm using someone else's funds for administrative services. And I think the intent is really to get at the ratio of the expenses versus the services. and how much really is going to services. And so I believe that, I believe it's important to make it so that it's 85% of total funds that people are, that the applicants are held to, rather than just of city funds.
And so by total fund, you mean like total revenues for an organization, that the organization expends 85% of its total revenue on direct services?
On direct services. And right now, when only, the applicants only have to say that they are expending 85% of city funds. And just having reviewed some of the applications, I believe that that is a loophole.
I think I see, like, for me, the question would be like, what's the standards or benchmarks for what's considered a well-running nonprofit? Is it 85%? Is it 80%? Is it 75%? I think that would be information I would feel I would need to know.
I agree. I would not have pulled 85% out, and certainly don't feel, capable of making that decision. But my concern is just at what point, how much of organization is spending on the services versus their expenses. And having looked at some of the organizations, we have some, there needs to be some changes.
I think, I mean, that feels like that would skew to hyper small organizations that would probably rule out job training. That would probably rule out, some of the larger organizations. If I understood correctly, 85% of their,
So I would,
that feels like it could put us down a path we may not.
how about
intend.
I actually don't feel competent to do this, but I have nothing sticking to 85%. And maybe it's an additional comment that, at least 50% of and I'm just throwing that number out. I have no idea, but I know that there are some that are under, from what I've seen, there are organizations that we have funded that are under 50% direct services versus expenses.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. I agree with the intent. It's just a hard number that is really, really tricky.
I
mean,
totally.
do we ask staff to go back and evaluate that, or maybe we evaluate it against the last couple of years of?
Well, I guess that's why I
organizations
would
we've
maybe
funded?
throw out something like 50%, just because I really don't want staff to have to do this. And it seems like that's, my guess is that a higher percentage would be reasonable, but 50% would be hard to argue that it wasn't reasonable. That 50%, I think that 50% is services versus expenses.
I think, like, how are we validating this? Are we just asking them to, like, attest? Are we then asking staff to go through and, like, make some determination on its own from?
I guess, I think we just ask them to attest, because from what maybe we should,
You can look at 990s as well. Yeah.
I'm sorry, we could, but that's where I worry, how, if we're going to do this, how labor intensive do we want to do? I guess maybe City Clerk Karen.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding correctly, opposed to the city council directing a modification to the policy with an exact percentage of what needs to go to direct services compared to administrative. The direction would be to have staff find what that percentage would be, return that? No, okay.
No, I certainly wouldn't want to burden staff with that. What I was thinking of is asking organizations to attest to the fact that they are at least 50%, or maybe you ask them to, what is their percentage?
Yes, through the mayor, I was just thinking about that in the interest of overall time. That might be the most simple way for this next round of funding. is to ask them what their breakdown is. And then as part of next year's cycle, we can consider that information and do a little bit of research for a future policy amendment. So if that kind of ties us over for this next cycle, I think that's information we could ask on the application.
And I actually think that that could be something that just goes into, maybe that's all we need. And then the staff and then the subcommittee just looks at that and uses that as one of the parameters. But it would be, percent of, how much of their total funds go to direct services. And honestly, I'm not even sure what direct services means.
Yeah.
So
I would be supportive of that, this idea that this is one additional data point that the subcommittee can look at. Although I will only point out that our no longer with us colleague, Councilmember, former Mayor Willison, had issues with the whole program, for this very reason, and that the city did not have the skills and expertise to run something like this, and so so I do take that that's also something that
I mean, I would sort of offer two slightly different views. Having run a nonprofit, I actually felt pretty good about the process that we ran, that Councilmember Wise and I ran. And we made some adjustments. I do think that one of the things we might want to talk about over time is there was a sort of a peanut butter approach for everybody gets a little bit, and having run a nonprofit, that little bit doesn't always make a lot of sense. So I do think there's some tweaks in strategic alignment where an organization is long-serving and they fill a gap that we can't fill. So I'd love to discuss that at some point. I do love the solution as well of self-reporting. It's such I will tell you, the 50% mark won't make a difference. It won't move the needle in the way you're saying, because there's probably not a nonprofit out there that could survive with 50-50. It is closer to 80-20, but it's really kludgy. Yeah. So I like the fact that as an additional data point that helps. And having them self-report, it's easier than going and trying to find it and parse it out in line items and stuff. And then, yeah, I would love to at some point talk about, could we narrow the list to be more local serving in areas where we have gaps in what we fund as a city too.
I would only add that I think that's a discussion to be had. That's a different program, right? Where the city feels that it really has very specific gaps, and then there is the city makes a strategic decision. Here is, for lack of a better phrase, this kind of found money approach. Right? No nonprofit should be depending on this in theory, or does, and obviously we stopped doing it for a while. So, but I do think that is, and I think that was something, and maybe you too, Vice Mayor Nash brought it up, but I think it was something also former Mayor Willison brought up, that if the idea was that to provide some funding for some services that are being provided that are critical, that this probably wouldn't be the approach that you took, if I'm remembering her correctly. Okay, but I like the city manager's compromise, and so and I have no doubt that you and Councilmember Schmidt and Councilmember Wise ran a good process as it relates to the community funds. Okay, so are we good on informational items? All right, with that, we'll go on to city manager report.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to talk through, for the benefit of staff, council, and community, the next 3 city council meetings that are currently scheduled. So one is on December 2nd. That's a special meeting of the city council. The main topic there is related to the ballot initiative and the options in front of the city council and the receipt of the 9212 report. So that's special meeting on December 2nd. I believe the start time is 5:30 on that meeting. And the next meeting is December 9th. That's the city's reorganization meeting, more ceremonial in terms of recognizing outgoing mayor, selecting the incoming mayor, and then with a reception following. And so that council meeting's here in the council chambers. I believe we're targeting a reception at the Gatehouse after the council meeting. And then the third meeting in December is December 16th, and that meeting scheduled to be held at the Bellhaven Community Campus. So 3 meetings in December, the 9th and the 16th had been on the calendar for a long time. December 2nd is a special meeting. So those are the 3 meetings currently scheduled in December. That's my update for tonight.
Okay, city council member reports. Vice Mayor Nash.
Thank you. I wanted to actually report out from a PCE Executive Committee meeting, and this is an issue that's going to the full board on Thursday. And Peninsula Clean Energy plans to sunset its Community Advisory Committee at the end of 2025 and launch a new community feedback forum. The Community Advisory Committee is a 15-member Brown Act body that has been invaluable to the PCE. And what I really wanted to do is highlight that currently 3 Menlo Park residents serve on it: Michael Clausen, Cheryl Schaff, and John McKenna. And I want to acknowledge their outstanding contributions and leadership to the organization. The new Community Feedback Forum will welcome unlimited stakeholders, emphasize multilingual access, and encourage open public participation to ensure that diverse voices guide PCE's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Nash. Any other council member reports? Okay, with that, I will adjourn the meeting.